So now we will move on to the next important lecture, which is pumps or mechanical water lifting devices. As we all know, pumps are the mechanical devices which helps to move water from one place to another using pressure energy or increased pressure. Okay, the main principles of pump are change in atmospheric pressure, centrifugal force, positive displacement, and the movement of columns of fluid. So these are the main principles by which water is moved in a pump. Moving on to the general definition of pump, it is a device which has the function of increasing the total energy of a liquid, or it transfers the energy to the fluid using a driving motor. So this is the main definition of a pump. It uses a driving motor, the energy from which is taken and it is transferred to a fluid for the movement of the fluid. Okay, so the main needs of pump are: it is used to pump a liquid from lower pressure area to a higher pressure area, or a lower elevation area to a higher elevation area, or to increase the flow rate. So these are the main three needs of a pump. Now we will move on to the basic terms related to pumping. First one is the volumetric flow rate, which is the volume of fluid transferred in unit time, or it is otherwise known as a discharge rate. Okay. The second term is head. Head is very important in case of pumping. Head is the total energy content of a liquid in reference to a particular datum. It is known as head. It is generally expressed in terms of meters of water. Now, the total head is explained as the difference between the total discharge head and total suction head. Actually, you have to realize the fact that there is a suction area and a delivery area. Okay, suction area is the area from which the water is taken into the pump, and delivery area is the area from which the water is given out of the pump. So the difference between these two levels is known as the total head normally. Okay, for a generally this is the total head. Now hydraulic power is the power transferred by the pump to the liquid. Here the liquid is the water, so the power transferred by the pump to water is known as hydraulic power. And vacuum, as we all know, vacuum is a term used for the pressure which is lower than atmospheric pressure. Now, another important term is the net positive suction head. The net positive suction head is the actual pressure of water. Okay, actual pressure of water at a particular condition. It is known as NPSH, or net positive suction head. There are two types of NPSH. It is NPSH available and NPSH required. The NPSH available is the pressure of the water which is present at the pump impeller inlet. Okay, so we all know that the water pump is used to transfer the energy to the water for the movement of water. Okay, so at the impeller means the area, the rotating part of a pump, it is known as impeller. At the inlet of the impeller, water will be there. The pressure of that water, the actual pressure of that water is known as the NPSH available, net positive suction head available. Now another NPSH is the NPSH required. So actually there is an NPSH value which is required by the pump to operate without any problems. So that is the NPSH required. If the NPSH available is less than the NPSH actually required by the pump, then there will be problems in the pump. So you may have experienced some sounds, some breaking sounds in the pump sometimes. So that sound is caused by a process known as cavitation. The cavitation occurs when this NPSH available is less than the NPSH required for the pump. Another term is the discharge head. I have already told you about discharge side and suction side. Discharge side is the side which delivers water out from the pump. Okay, so the discharge head is the distance or height or elevation from the center line of the pump to the discharge end. So you just assume that there is a pump. Okay, you may have seen the pump in your house. So there is a pump, let it be a centrifugal pump. So there will be two pipes for the pump. One is the delivery pipe and the other one is the suction pipe. Okay, so the suction pipe will be extended towards the source of the water. The source of the water will be below the pump, right? In some cases, in major cases, the source of water will be below the pump. Let it be a well. Okay, so pump is placed outside the well. There is a pipe from the pump to the well. That pipe is known as suction pipe. Okay, and the head or elevation of the pipe is known as, from the source of water to the center of the pump, is known as suction head. And there will be another pipe from the pump to the delivery portion. Maybe at some height. Okay, so the distance from the center line of the pump to the delivery end is known as the discharge head or delivery head. Okay, so this is the difference. From the center line of the pump to the suction point or to the source of water is known as the suction head, and from the center line of the pump to the delivery end is known as the delivery head or discharge head. Now there are two conditions, static and dynamic. Static condition means the pump is not working, the pump is not switched on. So at that condition, what is the delivery head, what is the suction head? That is known as static delivery head and static suction head. Okay, now if the pump is working, what will happen? The water level will be continuously changing. So that condition is known as dynamic condition. At that condition, when the pump is working, while the pump is working, what is the suction head and what is the delivery head? That is known as dynamic suction head and dynamic delivery head. Now there are two cases. You can assume two cases. One is when the pump is above the source of water. So as in our centrifugal pump and all, we can see that the source of water is below and the pump is above. In that case, that suction pipe will be from the source of water to the pump. Okay, so in that case, that suction head is known as suction lift. It is not suction head, it is suction lift. If the source of water is below the pump, then the suction portion is known as suction lift. Okay, now in some cases the pump will be below the water. In that cases, there will not be any suction lift. That particular suction area is known as suction head. Okay, suction lift will be not there. That particular suction area is known as suction head. In case of submersible pump, there is no suction lift. Suction head is only available. Okay, so that is the difference. And another one term is friction head. It is the resistance to flow in the pipe system. Friction head. Okay. All of these heads are measured in hertz and lifts are measured in meters of water. Now another term is there, flooded suction. The flooded suction is the condition in which the liquid flows to the pump inlet from an elevated source by means of gravity. If the liquid source or the water source is above the pump, then that type of suction is known as flooded suction. For example, if there is a tank at the upper end of a hill and we are pumping water to the lower end, then that case is known as flooded suction. Now another very important term is the water hose power. It is the minimum power that is required to move the water. It is the minimum power which is required to move the water, and it is expressed by the form of an equation. WHP is equal to HQ divided by 3960. 3960 is a unit conversion term, and H is the head or pressure head and Q is the discharge, and H is in the unit of feet and Q is in the unit of gallons per minute. I have given what is the gallons per minute and all I have given here. Feet also I have given here. So you have to note one point that WHP is equal to HQ divided by 3960. That 3960 comes only when H is in feet and Q is in gallons per minute. Otherwise, if H is in meter and Q is in meter cube per second, then the 3960 will not be there. There will be 746. So that equation we will see later. So here WHP is equal to HQ divided by 3960, where H is in feet and Q is in gallons per minute. Now another important term is the pump efficiency. The pump efficiency, as we already know, efficiency is the output divided by input expressed as percentage. It is known as efficiency normally. Here the pump efficiency is equal to water HP output divided by HP into the pump. Output is the water HP, okay, divided by whatever was the power which is given to the pump into 100. It is known as pump efficiency. The pump efficiency will be between 0 to 1 in case it is decimal, or otherwise it will be below 100%. Okay. Now we will move on to the major portion, which is the classification of pumps. Pumps or mechanical water lifting devices are generally classified into two: dynamic pressure pumps and positive displacement pumps. The dynamic pressure pumps are otherwise known as variable displacement pumps also. Okay. Dynamic pressure pumps are of mainly 5 types: centrifugal, propeller, turbine pumps, jet pump and airlift pump. Okay. And positive displacement pumps are of generally 2 types: reciprocating and rotary. Reciprocating pumps are 2 or 3 types: piston, diaphragm and plunger pumps are also there. And rotary pumps are of gear, lobe, screw, vane, rotary plunger, etc. Okay, so these are the different types of rotary pumps. Now we will move on to the important types of pumps in detail. So first we will move on to the positive displacement pumps. So the positive displacement pumps are of so first we will see the basic comparison between centrifugal pumps and positive displacement pumps. As we have discussed earlier, centrifugal pump is a category of dynamic pressure pumps or variable displacement pumps. Okay, so why we are taking this comparison is centrifugal pumps is the most important pumps used for irrigation purposes. Okay, so we have to compare its properties with a positive displacement pump. So that's why we are taking this comparison. Okay, so when we compare these two, based on the mechanics, centrifugal pump will impart velocity to the liquid, which results in the pressure at the outlet. So it will first impart the velocity and it will be converted into pressure energy. Velocity energy or kinetic energy is converted into pressure energy in case of centrifugal pump. In case of positive displacement pumps, it is ulta. That is, it captures confined amount of liquid and transfers it from suction to the discharge port. So here first the flow is created and then the pressure results. Okay. And the second one is, according to performance, flow varies with changing pressure. So that's why it is known as variable displacement pumps or dynamic pressure pumps. Velocity changes with change in pressure. Velocity or flow changes with change in pressure. In case of positive displacement pump, the flow is always constant. And regarding viscosity, the efficiency decreases with increasing viscosity. In case of centrifugal pump, this is because there will be friction losses. In case of positive displacement pump, the efficiency increases with increasing velocity, because in case of positive displacement pump, we will use the pressure of the liquid to make the flow. So if velocity of the liquid is high, then pressure will be high and it will result in high efficiency. And regarding efficiency, centrifugal pump has a peak efficiency at the best efficiency point or BEP, that we will see later. Okay, in case of positive displacement pump, the efficiency increases with increasing pressure. It will not have any best efficiency point. The efficiency increases with the increasing pressure. And based on the inlet condition, the liquid must be in the pump to create a pressure differential. A dry pump will not prime on its own. That is, there should be liquid in the pump always. So otherwise, if the pump is dry, then a priming is required in case of centrifugal pump. But in case of positive displacement pump, negative pressure is always created at the inlet point, so it will not need any mechanical priming. Okay, so these are the main differences between centrifugal and positive displacement pumps. Now we will move on in detail to the positive displacement pump. So in case of the positive displacement pump, the fluid or the water is moved or displaced based on some mechanical devices like plunger, piston, gear, cam, screws, etc. So displacement of water is caused by these instruments. So the first pump which is coming under the category of positive displacement pump is the reciprocating pump. The reciprocating pump has very much resemblance with our crank system in the tractor. So in that system we can see that there will be a cylinder and inside that there will be a piston and a crank will be rotating. The crank will transfer its rotating motion into reciprocating motion by means of the cylinder and piston. The same principle is used here. There will be a piston or a plunger which is moving inside a cylindrical system. So we will see the figure later. And the rotating motion of a crank is converted into the reciprocating motion of this piston, and this movement of this piston will be transferred into the fluid and the fluid moves. Okay, this is the principle. For the working of this reciprocating pump, the force required is calculated as P is equal to WAL, where W is the what is W? W is the specific weight of water, which is 1000 kilogram per meter cube, which is a constant, and A is the area of cylinder and L is the length of stroke. Okay. So this is the figure for a reciprocating pump. Here we can see that crank. And the crank has a piston. The crank is connected to a piston rod, and at the end of the piston rod there is a piston, and the piston is placed inside the cylinder. There is a water source at below portion. You can see a water source, and there is an intake pipe which is inserted into the water source. What will happen here is, when we rotate the crank, what will happen? This piston will move towards the end of the cylinder. At that time, this valve, the valve here, will open and the water enters into this intake pipe, and again the crank is, if the crank is rotated, what will happen? The piston again comes to close this valve. Okay, this valve, and the water moves out of the discharge pipe. So this is the process happening here. Now there are different types of reciprocating pump. The major types are single hand operated reciprocating pump and power operated deep well reciprocating pump. This is based on the source of work. So there are hand operated and power operated. You may have seen some so you may have seen the bicycle pumps. Okay, cycle pumps. So that are examples of hand operated reciprocating pumps. So the same principle is used for water also. And power operated pumps are also available. Now based on the mechanism, there are three types: single acting, double acting and triple acting reciprocating pumps. We will see the figure later. So in single acting pump, the water will be discharged from one end only. Okay, at one side only. In double acting, from both sides the water will be discharged. And in triple acting, three sides, from the center, from the two ends. Okay, so three sides the water will be discharging. So there, these are the figures of single acting and double acting reciprocating pumps. Here you can see that in single acting the water will be discharged from the left side only. In double acting the water will be discharged from this portion when it is pushed forward, and when the piston is pushed backward, the water will be discharged from this end. So this is double acting. In triple acting, what will happen is the water will be discharged when the piston comes at this position also. So this is the difference. Now if So in theory, a reciprocating pump will always deliver the same volume for each stroke, regardless of the discharge pressure. So whatever is the pressure, the reciprocating pump will always release the same volume of water. So that is why it is known as what is that, positive displacement pump. Okay. So the measure of this volume which is given out is known as volumetric efficiency of the pump. If some amount of water leaks within that pump, that amount or that leakage of water is known as slip. Okay, if the pump is in good condition, the slip will be below 1%. Okay, if the slip is above 5%, that is the leakage of water is above 5%, then the pump is not good for operation and it should be overhauled. And mainly the speed of a reciprocating pump is generally measured as strokes per minute. Strokes means the distance between the upper and lower end of the cylinder, movement of the piston, upper end movement of the piston from one end to the another. The distance between movement of the piston from one end to the another is known as stroke. I think that is not for you. Now the second type of positive displacement pump is the rotary pump. So here in this case, what is the difference between these two means? In case of reciprocating pump, we will use the reciprocating action for the movement of water. In case of rotary pumps, we will use the rotary motion for the movement of water. In this case, the rotary motion is created by some equipments known as gears, cams, etc. There will be two gears or two cams in a particular cylinder. Now, the movement of this two cams or gears in symmetrically, opposite directions, one in clockwise, another one in anti-clockwise. So that movement causes the water to move from one place to another. Now we will move on to the most important type, which is variable displacement or dynamic pressure pumps. As the pump head increases, the rate of pumping decreases. So that's why it is known as dynamic pressure pumps. The pump head will increases, the pump rate of pumping will decrease as the pump head increases. So that's why it is known as variable displacement or dynamic pressure pump. They are also known as rotodynamic pumps or dynamic pressure pumps. The major category in this is centrifugal pump, which is also known as a turbo machinery. So it is a subclass of turbo machinery. Turbo machinery definition is given there, you can read it. And the centrifugal pumps are used to transport liquids or fluids by the conversion of the rotational kinetic energy to the hydrodynamic energy of the fluid. I think it is understandable. So there are two main parts for a centrifugal pump. One is the impeller, which is the moving part, which is the rotating part. The impeller has some blades on it, which is a moving in one direction, either clockwise or anti-clockwise, and which will impart the pressure to the water. And the other one is the casing. Casing means the stationary part of the centrifugal pump. So these are the main parts, and there will be two things going on inside the pump. The first one is energy is being imparted to a liquid in the form of velocity, and the second thing is the energy is converted into a steady flow. These are the two things happening inside a centrifugal pump. So major components of the centrifugal pump are divided into two types, the wet end and the mechanical end. The wet end components are impeller and the volute or diffuser casing. Impeller and casing. I have already said that impeller and casing are the most important part. They are coming under the wet end. Okay, so where water is in touch with these two parts. So impeller is the rotating part. It consists of some blades. So water, the energy to the water is imparted by using this impeller, and the casing is the closed part or stationary part of the particular centrifugal pump. And there is a shaft sleeves, bearing, and a sealing arrangement. The all four shaft sleeve, bearing, and sealing arrangement comes under the mechanical end. Now we will move on in detail about the impeller. The impeller rotates and creates velocity. I have already said that, and it works by using the centrifugal force. The impeller will have a small hole at the center, and that part is known as eye of the impeller. The water comes into the impeller through this eye from the center. A vacuum is created in the impeller during the start of this operation, and due to this lower pressure the water enter into that portion, and the water will be rotated along with the impeller and it will be released into the casing at a high pressure. So now we will move on to so all these things happen due to this centrifugal force. Now the water will move on to the casing, and the casing is the element that converts all the energy created by the rotating impeller into a controlled or pressurized flow. So you all know what is a casing. Casing may be of two types, volute and diffuser casing. I'll explain the difference later. Okay. So here you can see this is a volute casing. So in the center you are seeing this thing. This is the impeller. The impeller has several curved blades inside it. Okay. So this portion is known as the eye of the impeller. Okay. So this impeller is placed inside a particular casing. This particular casing is known as volute casing. Why it is known as volute? Here you can see the clearance between this impeller and the casing is increasing from this point to the discharge end. So that's why it is known as volute casing. Okay, the clearance between the space. Clearance means the space between the impeller and the casing is increasing from this end to the discharge end. So that's why this particular system is known as volute casing. So this helps in increasing the pressure energy and increasing the discharge. Okay. In case of diffuser casing, what will happen is this clearance will be clearance we have seen, right? This clearance will be same. So this impeller will be placed at the correct center of this particular casing. In that case, that that casing is known as diffuser casing. So here it is volute casing. Okay. And the third part is the pump shaft. We are now moving on to the mechanical end, pump shaft. So the impeller is attached into a shaft. Okay, that shaft is known as pump shaft. It is made up of steel or stainless steel, and the size of that shaft will be in match with the impeller. And the shaft sleeve, the next part is the shaft sleeve. The shaft sleeve is made up of metal, bronze or stainless steel is used mainly. The sleeve is used to place the impeller at the correct position. And the next part is the sealing arrangement. The sealing arrangement is used to seal the gap between the wall of the stuffing box and the shaft. What is a stuffing box? Stuffing box is a particular portion of the shaft where the casing is placed. That particular portion is known as stuffing box. At that point we have to seal the entire arrangement because there may be some leakage. That leakage will cause problem to the pump. So to avoid that leakage we have to seal that particular portion. That particular arrangement is known as sealing arrangement. And there will be a number of pump bearings for fitting all that things together. So they are known as pump bearings. Now we will move on to the working of a centrifugal pump. I have explained already what it is. So again we can see what is the working of a centrifugal pump. A centrifugal pump may be defined as one in which an impeller rotating inside a closed fitting case. It draws in the liquid from the center. I have already explained it. It will draw the liquid through the eye of the impeller, which is located in the center. And by means of a centrifugal force, the water will be thrown out of the impeller to the periphery of the impeller. And this water is then moved along the casing and it will be discharged through the discharge end. So this is the operation. So this is the thing we have explained earlier. Now we will move on to another different term which is known as cavitation. I think I have mentioned this term later when I was explaining net positive suction head available and required. Okay, cavitation is the process So I think you may have noticed that some sounds will be coming out of this pump at some points if you are switching on the pump. So that sounds are due to presence of air bubbles at the inlet portion of the pump. When the air bubbles are present at the inlet portion of the pump, when we switch on the pump at that point, what will happen is this air bubble will go into the impeller, and at some point when the pressure increases, what will happen? This air bubble will burst, and the bursting sound will cause this cavitation. So this process is known as cavitation. And why this process occurs? What causes cavitation? I have already explained this. When the net positive suction head available at the inlet of the impeller is less than, much less than the net positive suction head actually required for the movement of water. In that case, this cavitation occurs, this entry of air bubble occurs, this bursting of air bubble occurs, and the sound is produced. And now we'll move on to another term known as priming. You have already experienced, I think you may have experienced this. In sometimes if we switch on the motor, the water will not move into the tank. So in that case, we will mechanically prime, we will add water to the motor externally or mechanically by uh, using some mug and all. Okay, so that process is known as priming. So here uh, that particular process is known as priming. You can read this slide. Now we will move on to another important term, which is the specific speed, which is a very important term in case of a centrifugal pumps. It describes the relationship between how much flow of an impeller produces and how much head it generates. Okay, so it is generally explained as the speed of a geometrically similar pump when delivering 1 meter cube per second of water against a head of 1 meter. Now the equation for specific speed is equal to n root q divided by h raised to 3 by 4, where h is the head in meter and q is the discharge in meter cube per second, and n is the rotational speed of motor, which is in rpm. So usually this specific speed is explained as a dimensionless quantity. For making it dimensionless, we have to multiply it with g, and we have to express n in radians. Now we will move on to the affinity laws. The affinity laws are the formulas that predict the impact of a speed and diameter of the impeller on the head, flow and power of the pump. So the relation between the speed and diameter of the impeller on the head, flow and power of the pump are expressed in the form of three formulas. That formulas are known as affinity laws. So the first law is the flow is proportional to the shaft speed or impeller diameter. So that is Q1 by Q2 is equal to N1 by N2 or D1 by D2. So N is the speed of the shaft, which is in RPM. N1 and N2 are the speed at two conditions. D1 and D2 are the impeller diameter at two conditions. Okay, so this is the first law. Now the second law is pressure is proportional to the square of the shaft or impeller diameter. So everything is related to speed of the shaft and diameter of the impeller. Now we will see the head, how the head is head or pressure. Head is equal to pressure itself. So head is related to speed and diameter. We will see here it is not h1 that 1 and 2 are in suffix. I'm sorry, that was my mistake. 1 and 2 have to be in prefix. Okay, h1 by h2 is equal to n1 by n2 the whole square or d1 by d2 the whole square. As I have said earlier, h is in meter, n is in rpm and d is the diameter in meter. Now the third law is power from the pump is proportional to the cube of the shaft speed or impeller diameter. So again here also 1 and 2 should be placed as suffixes. So it was my mistake. P1 by P2 is equal to N1 by N2 the whole cube or D1 by D2 the whole cube. So these are the different affinity laws. Affinity laws are of three: law 1, law 2 and law 3. So that three laws you have to study. And now we will move on to the centrifugal pump characteristic curves. So there are these characteristics curves relates all the head, power, efficiency and velocity. Head, power, efficiency and velocity of a centrifugal pumps are related to each other. How it is related? That is known as characteristics curves. There are four curves: head versus flow curve. So here we will come. This figure shows a compiled form of all the four curves. And the first, how the head is related to discharge. We can see the head curve. This is the head curve. The head will be decreasing with increase in discharge. Head will be decreasing with increase in discharge. Now, how the speed is related to the discharge. Here, this is the speed curve. Now, we can see that when the discharge is increased, the speed will be increasing, and at a particular point it will start decreasing. Now power, this is the power curve. As the discharge is increasing, the power will be increasing. Now efficiency, this is the efficiency curve. As the discharge is increasing, the efficiency will be increasing, and at a particular point, after a particular point, it will start decreasing. That particular point of maximum efficiency is known as best efficiency point, or BEP. So here in this figure you can see the BEP. Okay. So that was a compilation of all the four curves. Here we can see each curve now. H versus Q. Head is plotted in y-axis while flow is plotted in x-axis. And a head curve will fall for increased flow rate. You can see this, the falling of head curve with increased flow rate. Now efficiency curve starts from 0, goes like a trajectory having a best efficiency point, and then the efficiency start falling for increased flow rate. For brake horsepower plotted against flow, it will rise with the flow. And for NPSHR or power required, if we are plotting it with flow rate, what will happen is the BEP will rise. It will have a flat curve at first and then it will rise sharply. So these are the different characteristics curves. Now we will move on to the classification of centrifugal pumps. The centrifugal pumps are classified based on 6 types. First, based on the energy conversion, it is classified as volute and diffuser. I have already explained that. The number of stages, it is classified into single stage and multi-stage. Single stage pump means there is only one impeller. In case of multi-stage, there will be many impellers at different stages. It is placed in a same casing. In the same casing, there will be different impellers which is placed in series. Example is submersible pump. And based on the impeller types, there are single or double action impellers, open, semi-open or closed impellers. And based on the axis of rotation, there are horizontal and vertical axis centrifugal pumps are there. And based on the method of drive, direct connected, geared and belt or chain driven are there. And based on the type of flow, radial, axial and mixed flow are there. So single stage and multi-stage centrifugal pumps are there. We have already discussed that. The single stage pumps has only one impeller in it, and the multi-stage pump has a number of impellers which is connected in series with each other. And example, in case of submersible pumps, we will use this multi-stage impeller case. And regarding the radial, axial and mixed flow centrifugal pumps, in radial flow pumps, the axis will be perpendicular to the flow direction. And in case of axial flow pump, the axis will be in parallel with the flow direction. And in case of mixed flow, both will happen. Both will be a mixture of both axial and radial will be there. So these are the figures. In case of the radial flow, this is the direction of the axle. The water will flow along this direction in perpendicular to the axis. In case of axial flow, this is the axis. The water will flow along this direction which is parallel to the axis. And in case of mixed flow, both will be combined. And based on the type of impellers, there are open, semi-open and closed impellers are there. In case of open impellers, there will not be any enclosure for the impellers. The blades will be seen with our naked eyes. There will not be any closures to the impellers. This open impellers are mainly used in case of sludge removal or sewage removal, because if we remove the sludge and all, there will be many particles in it. If we are using a closed impeller, then it will clog the blades. Okay, in case of an open impeller, there will not be any closure, so the sludges will remove easily. Okay, so open impellers are used in sewage activities, and semi-open impellers are impellers having closure at one side, other side will be open. And closed impellers are impellers which are closed from both ends. So these are the open, semi-open and closed impellers. So the blades are of different shapes. Here we can see the different shapes of blades. Now how we can select a centrifugal pump? We will select the centrifugal pumps based on its characteristics curves. First we will see the head capacity curve. How the capacity or flow rate will change with the head, we will see for the particular well we are installing the pump. Okay, now this curve is compared with the efficiency curve and brake horsepower curve of that particular pump. So if the comparison matches, then we will select that particular pump. So this is the procedure for selection of a centrifugal pump. Now we will move on to the second type, turbine pumps. So the turbine pumps consist of impellers placed below the water level and are driven by vertical shaft rotated by an engine or motor placed at the ground level. So in case the turbine pumps are the pumps, we have seen that in case of centrifugal pumps, we will place the motor and the pump both above the ground, okay, above the source of water. So in case of turbine pumps, what is the difference? The pump will be placed below the water and the motor will be placed above the water. So this is the difference. In case of turbine pumps, we will place the pump below the water and motor above the water. So vertical turbine pumps are the same. Another one is submersible pumps. So there are two types, vertical turbine pumps in which the pump is placed below the water and the motor is placed above the water. And the second one is submersible pumps in which both the motor and motor and the pump both are placed below the water. So you may have seen this submersible pump. It is used mainly in case of tube wells. So multi-stage centrifugal pumps are used in this case as submersible pumps. Now selection of the turbine pumps mainly depends upon the properties of the well, the diameter of the well, depth of the well, and all that factors will be there. Now next important type of pump is the airlift pump. What is the peculiarity of the airlift pump? Airlift pump, the name itself says that we will apply the pressure of air for the movement of water. So we will see the picture first and we can explain. So there is a well. Okay, here there is a well. So this is a well, we can see, well or water source. This is the level of water in the well. Now what we will do is, we will supply air at the bottom of this well, bottom of this water source. So we will supply air, high pressure air at the bottom of this water source. At that time, what will happen? The high pressure of this air pushes the water up. So then what will happen is, the water will enter into this pipe and it will be discharged out. So this A, B and C shows different position at which we are applying the air. Different arrangements of airlift pumps are there. So A, B and C shows different arrangements of airlift pumps. Okay, the principle is, we will apply air at the water source and high pressure air at the bottom of the water source, and what will happen is, the water enters into the pipe and it will be discharged out due to the pressure of this air. Now the next one is jet pump. Jet pump is a combination of centrifugal pump and a jet mechanism or ejector. In this case, what we are doing is, in centrifugal pump, what we are doing, we are not applying any force. Due to the vacuum, the water enters into the centrifugal pump. In this case, we will have a jet of water there, and due to the force of this water, the remaining water is pushed into the centrifugal pump. So this is the principle here. A jet mechanism is there with a nozzle, and this nozzle will exert high pressure fluid into the pump, and due to the pressure of this high pressure fluid, the remaining fluid will be forced into the centrifugal pump. So this is the thing happening here. These are the different arrangements or working of jet pump. Here a driving fluid or water is applied through a nozzle. Due to the force of this water, uh, the normal transported fluid is forced into the divergent section. This will end up in a centrifugal pump, and this fluid is forced into the centrifugal pump, and it will be uh, discharged to the outlet end of the centrifugal pump. Now the next type are the propeller pump. So the principal parts of the propeller pump and the method of operation are similar to the turbine pumps only. So the main difference is the design of impellers. This turbine pumps, propeller pumps are mainly designed for high discharge at low heads. The other pumps are sludge pumps, which are used for removing the sludge and sewage. I have already said that impeller used for this case will be open impellers. You can read this. So there are different types of sludge pumps. Progressive cavity pumps and centrifugal pumps are there. Now another one is vacuum pump. Vacuum pump is used to remove the vacuum from a container. Remove the gas molecules from a container. So if there is a closed space and there is a lot of air in that closed space, so now we will use a vacuum pump for removing that air, some air from that closed space, in order to make that space partially vacuum. Okay, so the vacuum pump functions by removing the molecules of air and other gases from the vacuum chamber. Okay, so there are different stages of vacuum: rough vacuum, medium vacuum, ultra high vacuum, and extreme high vacuum. You can read all this. Now there is an important thing: hydraulic ram. Hydraulic ram or ram pumps have been around for many decades and are popular for two main reasons. They need no external source of power. First thing is, they don't need any external source of power, and they are extremely simple with just two moving parts. So the basic idea behind a ram is very simple. It uses the momentum of relatively large volume of moving water to pump a relatively small volume of water uphill. So what we are doing here is we are pressurizing a source of water situated above the pump. Okay, that source of water applies more pressure into the pump. Okay, into the pipe, into the suction pipe, and a small amount of water is displaced at the discharge end. So there is an example given here. If you are reading this example with your mind, you will get the idea very clear, and I think no need of much explanation here. This hydraulic ram pump uses the force or impulsive power of a large amount of water to move or displace a small amount of water to a just small height. Okay, that is the principle. So the performance of the pump and all we have discussed many times. Now we will move on to the power requirements for pumping. So first of all, what is water horsepower? We have already seen one equation for that. Water horsepower is equal to H into Q divided by 3960. At that time itself, I have explained to you that we will use the 3960 only when H is in feet and Q is in gallons per minute. In case of that are in SI units, we will use the formula discharge into total head divided by 75. Okay, the unit of discharge is in liter per second and total head is in meter, then we will use the formula WHP is equal to QH, or discharge into head divided by 75. Now the shaft horsepower is the power required by the pump shaft. That is equal to this water horsepower divided by efficiency of the pump. And pump efficiency is equal to, so reverse of the above equation you can see. Now brake horsepower is the actual horsepower required to be supplied by the engine or electric motor for driving the pump. So for a direct driven pump, for the direct driven pump, that is the pump and motor are in the same shaft, then BHP is equal to shaft horsepower itself, because they are in the same shaft. If they are not in the same shaft, that is, it is driven by belt or other indirect drives, then BHP is equal to WHP divided by pump efficiency into drive efficiency. And the total horsepower input to electric motor is equal to WHP divided by pump efficiency into drive efficiency into motor efficiency. You can see the equations later. And the kilowatt, if we are converting this into kilowatt, what will happen? It will be multiplied with 0.746, because 1 watt is equal to 746 kilowatt. Okay, so we'll convert it into like this. And HP can be converted into kilowatts by multiplying it with 0.746. Now the cost of operation for that particular electric motor can be calculated by the energy in kilowatts into how much hours it is pumped, hours of pumping, into cost per kilowatt hour. Okay, so these equations you have to use in practicals, so you have to by heart these equations. And the general maintenance for pumps are given here, you can read this later. Now moving on to turbines. Turbines, we all know what are turbines. Turbines are the devices that extract energy from a particular fluid for producing electricity and all. For in hydroelectric projects, turbines are a very important devices. They are used for extracting the energy of that fluid, hydraulic energy from the fluid, and it is converted into some electrical energy and all. So there are two different types of turbines, impulse turbines and reaction turbines. You can read this. This is not much important, but you have to read all this. So impulse turbines uses high head, low flow rate, and reaction turbines have low head and high flow rate devices. So examples are also given in the earlier slides. I think, hope you all understood all these things. If you have any doubts, you can clarify it. Thank you.